Hey, how's it guys? In today's video, we're going to learn how to build a data entry form using Python. Alright, so before we dive into the tutorial, so this is going to be the this form application that we're going to build in Python. And for the framework, I'll be using PyQt6. And I'll guide you to all the steps in terms of installing the Python packages and how to write the code. Now, for the database backend, for simplicity, I'll be using Excel. But you can swap Excel with other database systems such as SQLite, MySQL, SQL Server, etc. Alright, so let's look at how this data entry form works. Alright, so first we'll have this very simple interface. So here we can add a new tab, which allows us to work on multiple data entry instances simultaneously. Alright, so let's say I'm building a doctor appointment data entry form for a medical office. Let's say I want to make an appointment for a patient. Let's do April 19. And for the time, let's do 4 p.m. I can press the tab key to go to the next field. And for the patient info, let's do my name, J. And for last name, I'm going to insert letter J. Now for the date of birth, so this is going to be a drop-down field. And I'm going to randomly select a month. And for the year, let's do 2015. Now if I try to click on submit button, and it's going to tell me that phone number is missing, and that's because phone number is one of the required field. So I can type the phone number, and I can choose whether if the patient is existing patient, and here I can choose whether yes or no, and it's going to be a radio button. Now I can click on submit, and that's going to add a new entry to my Excel database. And clear is going to clear all the text fields. Alright, so that's going to be everything I'm going to demo in terms of the application. It's going to be a very simple application, leaning toward beginners. And with that being said, let's get started. Alright, so here I'm going to launch my terminal. And since I already have the Python packages installed, so there are two packages that you'll be using. The first one's going to be, here let me zoom in. The first one's going to be the PyQt6 Python package. And you can install the package using pip install pyqt6. Now the other package is going to be the pywin32 package. So this is going to be the window API to directly interact with the Excel application object or the Excel application model. Alright, so let's first of all create the Python script first. So I'm going to, I'm using bash by the way. So I'm going to type touch, and I'll create two files. One is the app.py file, and the other file is going to be a module that we're going to create to interact with the Excel file. Alright, so I'll name the file appointment underscore database.py. Now for the application icon, I'll be using this calendar icon. Alright, so let's create the appointment database module first. Now inside the module, I'm going to import two items, import OS and import win32comp.client, and I'll name the module instance as win32. And let me make the font a bit bigger. Next, I'm going to create a class. So this class is going to be used allow us to simplify the data entry process. Now I'll name the class Excel appointments. Excel stands for Excel. Now inside the init method, and this is going to be the constructor. The first I'm going to check is whether or not if this my database.xlsx file exists. Now if you don't have the file created, simply go ahead and create a file. Let me open the Excel file. Now inside the Excel file, you will need to do a couple things. First, you will need to rename one of the tab as appointment. Next, you will need to create these counts: scheduled dates, scheduled time, first name, last name, DOB, gender, phone number, and existing patient. Now the count name doesn't need to match to what I have here. You can name the counts however you want, but your table must contain, let's see, your table must contain 8 counts. Now going back to the Excel appointment class. Alright, so first I'm going to create the file path pointing to the Excel database file. Next, I'll check if the Excel already exists. Now here I create a function called checkworkbook method. And here, let me paste the method here. So if we look at the checkworkbook method, so basically I'm using the os.path.exists function, and I'll provide the file path to check if the file exists. And if it does, then I'm going to return true. Otherwise, I'm going to return false. Now going back to this if statement, so here we can say, if the workbook file does not exist, then I want to raise a file not found error, followed by a message. Otherwise, I can go ahead and create my Excel application instance using the win32.dispatch class, and I'll provide the application name that I want to create. In this case, it's going to be excel.application. So by default, when you create Excel application, the visibility is going to set to false. Now, if you want to manage the Excel file in the background, you can simply set the visibility to false. Oh, since the visibility is set to false on default, in that case, you don't need to do anything. Alright, so once I create the Excel application instance, I need to open the Excel database file using the Excel app.workbooks.open, giving the file path. And I'll create an object called self.wb, which is going to be the Excel workbook object. Now inside the Excel file, I want to create a reference to the appointment tab or the appointment worksheet. So here I'm going to reference this self.wb object worksheets. Then I'm going to provide the worksheet name that I want to create reference. And I'll name the object as self.ws. Now to make an entry to the table here, I'm going to create another function. And I'm naming the function add appointment. Now this function will take a parameter called appointment info. And it's going to be the dictionary object that contains the appointment info. Later on, we're going to extract from the user form application. But if we just look at the code block here. So first, I need to figure out the last row in my appointment table here. And I can do that by using self.ws.cells. Then I'm going to insert the row counts from the appointment table here. So this statement here is going to return the total count that the worksheet is able to contain. And I forgot the number, but it's going to be a pretty large number. And I want to determine the last row based on count A. If you look at this cells method, the first parameter is going to be the row index, followed by the count index. In Excel, we can use letter or count number to represent the index. Now I want to go over something. Alright, so the way how we're able to detect the last row is, first we're going to look at the entire column based on count A. Then we're going to shift the row index up using this Excel direction enumeration. And the Excel up enumeration value is going to be minus 4162. And that's where this number comes from. So it's going to detect from the last row in this table. In this case, it's going to be 1,048,000 something. Then it's going to go up all the way to the first record that is not empty. Then it's going to return the row number. And once we have the last row number, we can now individually insert the record based on whatever the appointment info argument contains. So here, we're simply going to increase the last row number by 1, which is going to be the next available empty row. Then we're going to go to each column. Then we're going to insert the values individually. And once we insert the record, we're going to save the Excel file using the self.wb.save method. Alright, so this is going to be everything we need to write to create this appointment database.py module. Let's go ahead and create the data entry form. Alright, so here let's import the libraries first. Now I know this seems like a lot of libraries that we'll be using. If you build GUI applications using Python, then you will probably notice that this is actually not a lot. And each library has their own purpose, which I'll go to them individually as we build the application slowly. Alright, so first I'm going to import the system module. Now from the Qt widgets module, and these are all the classes that I'm going to import. Alright, so let me do this. I'm going to put this in a new line. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good. And I know I don't need the QSize policy class. Alright, so from the Qt core module, I'm going to import Qt class, which is going to be one of the core libraries to implement different functionalities. And to work with dates and time, I'll be using QDate and QTime classes. And I also want to implement in my own signal. And in PyQt6, we can use this PyQt signal class to construct our own signal. And to add the icon, we're going to use the QIcon class from the Qt GUI module. And lastly, we're going to import the Excel appointment class from the appointments database module. Alright, so let's create the main window first. So here I'm going to create a class called app window. And I'm going to pass this QWidget class as the parent class. So you can think this QWidget class as a blank window. Now inside the constructor, I'm going to set the application width to 600, and it's going to be a fixed width. And I'll show you why in a second. And for the height, I'm going to set that to 700. Now for the application title, I'm going to name the application Appointment Form Demo. Now to add the icon, so here we need to use the set window icon method, and we need to wrap the icon path with the QIcon class. Now one thing we can do that other GUI application framework that cannot do, such as Tkinter, is we'll be able to implementing our own CSS style sheets. Now in this demonstration, I'm simply going to set the overall application font style, actually not font style, the font size to 18 pixel. Now if we look at the style sheets here, so basically I'm saying that if any displayable interface that is embedded to this QWidget class, or the QWidget widget, I want to automatically set those interface font size to 18 pixel. Now to organize the widgets, so here I'm going to create a dictionary called self.layout. I'm going to set the main layout as Q vertical box layout. So this layout manager here is going to organize the widgets vertically. Now to apply the layout setting, so here we need to use the set layout method, and we'll provide the layout manager. In this case, it's going to be this Q vertical box layout. Now here we have the main application window created. Now to launch the application, we need to create a Q application instance, and we're going to pass the system argument. So this one is optional, but this is the standard. You can also use a blank list to place the system argument. So what this system argument is going to do is, this will allow the application to accept arguments. And because we don't have any argument that we're going to pass to the system argument, so you can see this as a placeholder. Now to launch the application window, so here we need to create an instance of the app window object. And I'll name the object as W. And to display the application window, we need to reference the window object. Here, let's name this as window. Then use the -show method to display the application. Now when we launch the application, here let me launch the application first. Now when we launch the application, so this application process is going to keep running in the background, just like any other applications. Now when we terminate the application, meaning that when I close this application, the system.exit method is going to look at the process from the app.execution method. It's going to look at this output right here, and the system.exit method is going to terminate that process. Alright, so here we have this blank window. Now the first item I want to add to the window is I want to add the tab manager. Now in PyQt6, we can create a tab manager using the QTab widget class. Alright, so here I want to construct my own tab manager interface. So I'm going to create a class, and I'll name the class tab manager, and I'll pass QTab widget as the parent class. Now, as I mentioned before, I want to create my own signal to be a little bit more descriptive when it comes to implementing or creating different signals. Now here I'm going to create a signal called plus click. So this signal is going to be used when we click on a button. We're going to implementing this signal to the button, and when this plus click signal receives an incoming signal, we're going to use that to trigger the add a new tab function. Alright, so inside the constructor, we're going to have an optional parameter called parent. So this allows us to pass other widget to be able to interact with different functions from other windows. Alright, so by default, here, let me do this. I'm going to go back to the app window class. Now here I'm going to create a method called init UI. Now I'm going to call this an init UI method to insert in the widgets. In this case, it's going to be the tab manager. Alright, so here I'm going to create a tab number tracker. I'm going to use this tab number tracker attribute to display the tab number. Then I'm going to create a tab manager object, and I'm naming the object self.tab manager. Now here, as I mentioned before, now from the tab manager object, in this case, it's going to be this self.tab manager object. We can reference the plus click signal which I created from line 13 here. Then I want to code this add tab method, and which I haven't created yet. So let me come out that line for now. Now here we need to code the init UI method inside the app window constructor. Now if I go ahead and launch the application, here's I forgot, we haven't done anything yet. Alright, so let's do this. I want to create the add tab method first, and I want to implementing this method inside the app window class. So basically we're saying that when the signal is triggered, I want to call the add tab method. Now every time I call this method, I want to increase the tracker by 1. And let me come out these 3 lines. Alright, so here I need to add the tab manager object to my UI. And the way how I can do that is, so I can reference this main layout here, then use the add widget method, and I'll provide the widget object that I want to insert to my window interface. Now this one thing I want to add is the status bar, which is going to provide useful information to our users. Now for the status bar, it's going to be this Q status bar widget. And I'll name the object as self.status bar. Now again, with almost every single widget, we can set their own default style sheets. And here I want to set the status bar font size to 14 pixel. Then I'm going to add the status bar to the main layout. Alright, so let's take a look. Okay, so here we have the tab manager interface. And because we haven't implementing anything or create the initial UI, so it's going to display as a big blank window. But here if I code the add tab method, and let's see, the only thing that the method is doing is it's increasing the tracker by 1. Alright, so let's see, let's go back to the top. Let's finish the tab manager class. Alright, so here by default, the tabs from the tab manager does not enable the close button. So we need to use the set tabs closable method to enable the setting. And that's going to display the close button. Here, let me put the application back. Alright, so this X button is going to be associated to this set tabs closable method. Now, if I set the value to false, in that case, then the this close button is not going to display. Now, the next item I want to add to the tab manager is this add tab button. Alright, so by default, this Q tab widget does not have any UI, allows users to directly insert a new tab. So we actually need to implement our own interface, such as this plus button ourselves. And the way how I create the button is I'm going to use the Q tool button to create the button. And this widget basically is a watered down button that does not have as many functionalities as the regular button. And the trade-off is that the Q tool button widget is a lot easier to use. Alright, so here when I create the Q tool button widget, I want to set the caption. In this case, it's going to be the display text. I'm going to set that to the plus symbol. Now name the button as self.add tab button. Now when I click on the button, so I'm going to reference to this click signal that connects. I want to swap the signal with this plus click signal that we created before. And to add the button to the Q tab manager widget, I'm going to use the set corner widget method to add the button to the corner right here. And here I'm providing the widget that I want to place. Now to close the tabs, when we click on the close button, we're going to reference the tab close request signal, followed by the method I want to run when we click on the close button. In this case, we want to simply close the tab or the active tab. So here we need to create a method, and I name the method close tab. Now when the signal is being triggered, the signal is going to pass the active tab index number to the function. In this case, the close tab function or method is going to receive the tab index from the tab close request signal. Now inside the close tab method, I want to keep at least one tab open. So I'm going to use the self.count method to check how many tabs are currently available. And if the count is equals to 1, then I'm simply going to exit the method. Otherwise, I can use the remove tab method to remove a tab given the tab index. Alright, so now let's go ahead and create the appointment interface. And to do that, so here I'm going to create a separate class, and I'll name the class appointment. So I'm going to pass QWidget, which is going to be another blank window as the parent class. Now inside the class, I want to create a list, and this list is going to contain each month name from January all the way to December. And I'll name the object as months. Alright, so here for the constructor, again, I'm going to create an optional parameter called parent. Now inside the constructor, I want to reference the parent argument by creating an object called self.parent. Now I can sync this appointment class as a template, as a separate template. So for example, when it comes to building GUI applications, you can have different templates, and each template is going to represent different data form interface. Alright, so here I'm going to create another self.layout object, and it's going to be the layout managers that tied to this appointment class. And again, I'll name the layout as main. and this will be another vertical box layout. Then we're going to apply the layout manager using the set layout method. It will pass the layout object. Now, because this is going to be the appointment data entry interface, so in this interface, we have different widgets. So here we have a calendar widget, and it's going to be a time data entry widget that we're going to use to insert the time only. Then we have two text boxes to insert the first name and last name. Then we have a drop down to insert dates of birth. And here's another drop down to select the gender. Now here we have another field to insert the phone number. Now this is going to be a special text field in which we can only type numbers. Now if I try to type letter A, and because this field has a validation rule that implements, it is going to reject any letters that I type in, followed by a radio button that we can use to choose whether if a patient is an existing patient. Then we can click on these two buttons to whether to submit the record or to reset the fields. Now, when it comes to building PyQt application, so every time I create different widgets, my preferred method is always going to be create a separate method to insert those widgets. And one of the main reasons is because I can easily organize the widgets. Alright, so here I'm going to create the init UI method. Now, the first thing I want to create is this appointment scheduler label. And we can do that by using the Q label widget, followed by the text that I want to display. Oh, and I forgot to mention that. So here I create 3 dictionaries to manage the widgets based on the widget type. Alright, so here we'll create the label. And I'm going to store the label in the labels dictionary. And to reference the label, I'm going to create a key called form title. Alright, so because I want to increase the font size and change the font color, so here I'm going to reference this Q label object by referencing the form title key from the self.labels dictionary. Then I can use the setStyleSheet method to set the CSS style. So here I'm setting the font size to 30 pixel, followed by the font color, and I want to set the font style to bold. Then we're going to add the label object to the main layout that belongs to the appointment class. Alright, so since we have the appointment class created, now we can take this class and go back to the add tab method from the app window class. Alright, so here I can finally add a new tab. So I'm going to reference the tab manager object, and I can add a new tab using the add tab method. Now here we need to provide the interface. In this case, the interface is going to be coming from the appointment class. Now, because I want to be able to interact with the methods from the app window class, so I'm going to provide self as the parameter value or parameter argument to the parent parameter. Now, if we look at this line here, so basically this self.parent object is going to be referencing this app window class. Alright, so let's see. Alright, so going back to the tab manager.add tab method. So here I'm going to insert the widget, and which is going to be coming from the appointment class. Now for the tab caption, I'm going to name the caption schedule followed by the tab number. Now I'm going to launch the application again. Let me close this. Alright, so let's see. Oh, okay. Alright, so this should be a method. Alright, so we now have the label, or basically the title caption. one of the behavior I want to implement is I want the focus to be on the newly added tab. Now going back to the add tab method. From the tab manager object, we can reference the active tab by referencing the current widget method. But since I don't need to do that here, let me see. Okay. All right, so here, because every time when we add a new tab, we know the tab index is going to increase by 1. We can use the count method on the self.tab manager object. So this will return the total tabs that are currently available from the tab manager object. Now, every time when we create a new tab, we know the tab index. In this case, is always going to be the maximum number of the tab count minus 1. So for example, for schedule number 3, the tab index is going to be 0, 1, 2. But if I close schedule 1 and open a new tab, now schedule number 4 tab is going to have index of 0, 1, 2. So this output here is always going to be the tab index of newly created tab. Then we can set the active tab using the setCurrentIndex method, giving the tab index. Now this time, if I go back to the application, now if I add a new tab, now the focus is going to set to the tab that I created. And that's just one of the small things that we need to take into consideration when it comes to user experience. Right, so let's go back to the appointment class. And I want to finish the UI. Alright, so here I want to create the horizontal line. And we can do that by using the QFrame class. Alright, so here, let's see. So I'm going to name the QFrame object as line divider. And I'll set the shape as horizontal line. And for the shadow style, it's going to be sunken. Now for the height, I'll set that to 20 points. Then I'm going to add the frame to the main layout. Alright, so here's going to be the divider that we just created. Now the next thing we're going to create is going to be the date selector, and it's going to be a calendar, followed by the time selector, and it's going to be a time entry field. Now to create the calendar dropdown, we're going to use the QDateEdit widget. Now here we can set the default format. And I want to display year first, followed by month value, followed by the date value. Now to display the calendar, so here let me set this to false. And I need to come out this line here, because when we set the set calendar pop-up value to true, this will allow us to, oh, I forgot to add those two widgets to the layout manager. Alright, so because I have quite many widgets that I want to insert to my UI, so I'm going to create a separate layout manager. And this time I'm going to use a layout manager called QGrid Layout. And the difference between this QGrid Layout, which one did I use? First, the Q Vertical Box Layout Manager is, so this layout manager will insert the widgets vertically. First, with the QGrid Layout Manager, we can specify the location of each widget that we inserted. Now, for example, I'm going to name the layout as appointment. Then I'm going to add the layout on top of the main layout manager. Then I'm going to insert the widget using the add widget method. Now, the first widget I'm going to insert is the appointment dates, just a QDateEdit widget. Now I want to insert the widget in the first row, first column. Now 1 and 3 is going to be the widget span size, meaning that how much do you want to expand vertically and horizontally. And 1 is going to be the default. But for the widget width, I want to increase the widget width by 2 more rows. So in this case, I'm going to set that to 3. And I want to align the widget to the left. And we can do that by using the alignment parameter. Now, if we look at appointment time widget, and which I'll cover that in a second. So here I'm inserting the widget in the first row, 4th column, and for the widget size, it's going to be 1 row high, 3 columns wide. Now, if I launch the application, here I haven't created the label yet. So here, let's do this. I'm going to create 2 label templates, and one is going to be this label class, and which is going to be the default font style to format the font that looks like this. And is that right? Let me take a look. This one is size 14. Okay, so I got that mixed up. So the H2 class is going to be the font style template for the grouping title, such as this patient info font style. And the label class is going to set the font style that looks like the font that right below the dropdown. The font size is a little bit smaller, and the color is going to be a little bit more toward a little bit light gray. And you can always modify the classes based on your need. Right, so I think that was the issue. I've got to create the class template. Alright, so if we look at, let me put it side by side. Now, if we look at this line here, I'm inserting the label in the 2nd row, 1st column, and 4th column. Now, going back to the calendar entry field. Now, because I set the calendar pop-out to false, and it's only going to give me this up and down button to manually change the date value. So this is going to be month, and it's going to be year. Now, for me personally, I prefer to use calendar because it's going to be a little bit more elegant, and also it's going to be a little bit easier for user to pick a date. Now here I'm going to set this back to true. And we now have the calendar back. Now this is just a personal preference. I like to display the gray line in the calendar widget. Now when I add a new tab, I want the default dates set to today. And today is April 13, 2023. And we can set the dates value by using the set dates method. And from QDates.current date method, and it's going to return today's timestamp. Now to work with time, we're going to use the QTime Edit widget. Now here we can set the default time format, and I want to set the format as AM PM. And again, I want to set the time as current time, and we can do that by using the set time method. And we can return the current time by referencing QTime.currentTime method. Now for both widgets, I want to set the width to 270. Alright, so let's continue. Now let's add the patient field. Alright, so here I want to create a little bit space between the calendar and the time group. And there are several ways we can create spacing between 2 different widgets. But for me personally, I like to use QLabel, and I'll set the string as empty string, which will also create the spacing effect. Then I'm going to insert the grouping label, and it's going to be patient info. Now to create the data entry field to insert the first name and last name, I'm going to create two queue line editor widgets. And one's going to be first name, one's going to be last name. And I'll store the widgets in the line editors dictionary. Now here I want to set both widgets width to 270, and it's going to be fixed width. Now again, I'm going to add the widgets to the QGrid Layout Manager. Now I'll insert the birthday dates field, and it's going to be a combo box. So here, I also create a template to pre-modify the combo box properties. Alright, so going back to the top, let me insert a bookmark here. So here I'm going to create a class called combo box, and I'm going to pass QComboBox as the parent class. Now the behavior I want to modify is that we can directly pass a list or array to this combo box template. Then we're going to use list comprehension to create an array, and I'll name the array self.items. Then we're going to add the items to the combo box using the addItems method. Then I'm going to modify the font style by changing the background color to white and the font color to, I think this is a darker gray color. Alright, so let's take a look. Now here with the combo box. Okay, so I know why. I haven't added the combo box or combo boxes to the layout manager. And let me do that right now. Alright, so here we're going to create three combo boxes. One is going to be the day selection, one is going to be the month selection, and the other one is going to be the year selection. Now the month list is going to be coming from the months list that we created before on the top. And these two lines are going to create the empty row and the H2 title. Alright, so here for simplicity reason, I'm inserting the date range based on current month. But really, I should have implementing one more step to update the date range based on the month selection. But for now, I'm going to create the date range based on the current month. And for the month list, it's going to be coming from the month list. And for the year range, it's going to be current year from 1930. Then I'm going to add those three combo boxes to the grid layout manager. Alright, so by now you should see a pattern in terms of creating the widgets. So basically, we're going to construct the widgets. Then we're going to insert the widgets to the QGrid layout manager. Alright, so the next item we're going to create is going to be the gender combo box. And again, I'm going to create two, let me see. I'm going to create two groupings this time. One is going to be gender, the other one is going to be phone number. Now for the gender combo box, it's going to be male and female. And for phone number field, I'm going to insert a regular queue line edit widget. Then I can set the mask using setInputMask method. And he can provide the mask format. Then we're going to add the widget to the QGrid layout manager. Alright, so we're almost done with the application. Now here I'm going to simply insert the radio button and the push buttons. Alright, so let's look at the radio button first. And again, I'm going to insert the grouping title first by inserting an empty row first, followed by the H2 title label. Now to work with radio buttons, and because, let me create the method yet. Let's do this. Let me come out these four lines. Now with the radio buttons, because you can only select one item from the selections, so here we need to create a button group using the Q button group widget. Then we're going to create the radio button items by using the Q radio button widget. And in this case, it's going to be yes or no. Now I want to set the default to the no option. So from the no radio button object, I'm going to use the set check method, and I'll set the value to 2. Then I'm going to add the radio button items to the Q button group. And the last step is going to add the buttons. And here I'm referencing the Q button group. Then I'm going to use the add button method to add the radio button item. Alright, so if we look at this line here, I'm going to assign the radio button item. Then I'm going to supply a value to associate to the radio button. And this can be any number. Now in this case, I want to use 1 to represent yes and 0 to represent no. Then I'm going to add the radio buttons to the appointment layout. Alright, so let's work on the push buttons. And to create the push buttons, it's very straightforward. We'll simply reference the Q push button widget, and we'll insert the text I want to display. And this ampersand symbol is going to create a key shortcut to the letter that you put the symbol right in front. So in this case, I want to create a key shortcut to assign to the S key. And this one's going to assign a shortcut to the C key. Then I'm going to add the push button widgets to the appointment layout. Alright, so one of the error that I got was because when I launched the application, I haven't created these two methods yet. One is the add entry method, which is going to add a new record to the Excel spreadsheet. And the other one is going to reset the text fields. Now here, let's go ahead and create those two methods. Alright, so the first one is going to be the reset method. Now if we look at this code right here, so the cell reference is going to reference the appointment application window. So this window right here. And we know we pass QWidget class as the parent class. So this cell reference is going to also represent the QWidget class. Now I want to reference all the child widgets that is inserted to the appointment window. And we can reference the children method to return the child widgets list. Now from the list, I want to use the isInstance method to check if the widget belongs to QLine edit widget or belongs to the Q combo box family. Now if a widget is a regular text field, then I simply just want to clear the field. But if the widget is a combo box, then I want to set the drop down to the first item by using the second index method, and I'll provide the index number of 0. Then I'm going to clear the status bar. Now because the status bar belongs to the app window class, and here we can reference the app window class by referencing the self.parent object. And from there, we can reference the status bar widget. And we can clear the status bar using the clear message method. Now for the add entry method, so basically we're going to use this method to add a new record to the Excel spreadsheet. Alright, so the method is actually pretty straightforward. So I'm going to create a dictionary called info. Then I'm going to extract the values from each widget from the appointment UI. So the first item is going to be the calendar date. And we can return the value by referencing the widget .date. So this date method is going to return the output as a QDate object. And it's a special data type that is specific to PyQt. Then we're going to convert the object to this date format by using the toString method. And we'll do the same thing for the timestamp. Then I'm going to extract the value from the text field by referencing the text method. And from the combo boxes, I can retrieve the values by using the current text method. And here, phone number is also another text field, so I'm going to use text method to extract the value. Now for the radio button, we can retrieve the value from the self.button group object check ID. Now below are some the validations that I want to implement to the application. So for example, I want to ensure that first name, phone number are entered. And these two are going to be the required fields. And if these two conditions are met, then I want to go ahead and clear the status message. Now here at this point, we haven't actually created the Excel spreadsheet instance yet. And I'm going to do that. So from the application window class, I want to create another method. And I'll name the method init database. Now this method is going to be used to connect to a database source. In this case, I'm using Excel spreadsheet as the storage place. Now you can replace this with other data source systems such as MySQL, SQLite, SQL Server, BigQuery, and so on. Now inside the init database method, I'm going to create an instance of the Excel appointment object. Now going back to the Excel appointment class. Now one of the things that we did was, remember, we have this if statement to do the check. If the Excel file does not exist, then it's going to raise the file not found error. So here I can simply insert try except block and to check against the file not found error. And if we run into the file not found error, then we're going to display the message database file is missing using the status bar. And we need to code the init UI database method to create the database connection. Alright, so going back to the add entry method. So here we can reference the Excel spreadsheet by referencing the self.parent object database. And this database object is going to be referencing this Excel appointment object. Right, so let me put a bookmark right here. Then we can use the add appointment method and we'll pass the info dictionary. And once we add the record, we can display a status message, appointment added. Alright, so this is going to be everything we need to write to build this application. Alright, so here let me take a look. I'm going to put the script and the Excel spreadsheet side by side. Now I'm going to launch the application. Alright, so first I'm going to click on the submit button to make sure that we have the patient name is missing status message. Next, I'm going to choose appointment dates. Now let's use May 1st, 2023. And for the time, let's use current time. And for the patient info, so here I can type my name, J and J. And I'll create a new tab and I'll come back to that later. Alright, so for the birthday, let's use March 6, 2018. And for the gender, let's use female. And phone number, let's use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me go back. And I think that looks okay. And for existing patient, let's set that to yes for now. Alright, so if I click on submit, and here, now I'm getting an error. Alright, so I'm pretty sure that my code is not working correctly. Oh, okay, so I know why, because I already opened the Excel spreadsheet. Alright, so here, let me do this. Let me close all the Excel spreadsheet. Now I'm going to launch the application. Now when I launch the application, it's going to open the Excel spreadsheet automatically. let me go ahead and retype all the entries. And this one's going to be May 1st, J and J. And for the birthday, let's use May 10, 2015. Alright, so if I click on submit, and it's going to add a new record to the Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to create a new tab. And this time I'm going to, let's use Thomas Lee. And for everything else, I'm going to set those to default. Then I'm going to click on submit. And that's going to add the record from this tab to the Excel spreadsheet. Alright, so this is going to be everything I'm going to share in this video. And if you have any question, feel free to post your question or your feedback in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this video a like and click on the subscribe button. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.